Hey everybody, we are on episode 2 of Experts Tell All. I have the one and only Jelaire Grillo with me today from Prosperity Home Mortgage, and we are going to continue on our mini series where we're really talking about Jelaire and her organization's journey and evolving their company's adoption of the Total Expert platform. So as we mentioned on the past recording, you can go back to the other one and talk, and we're talking a little bit about, setting the stage for why she essentially set out on this journey to say, hey, I need to reevaluate adoption and what that looks like within the organization and ensure that we're getting buy-in from the sales team. And so that was about 2 years ago, Jelaire. And I know, from that, what came out of that whole evaluation was essentially 3 big ticket items and takeaways, right, from those conversations. Number one was, really building out a sales leader journey was that first piece of it. And that was a big output. And so I want to start on today's episode just talking a little bit, maybe from your perspective, why was this such a pivotal output and how you went about building this journey, and then also what you've seen from it. So I don't know if you want to just kind of start there, kind of just give us the whole shebang.
Yeah. So when we did those sales leader meetings in that fourth quarter, one of the things that we noticed was our sales leaders actually wanted to understand our tech stack. They wanted to be better inside of it so that they could be better advocates for it, but also so that they have an understanding of what their teams are doing every day inside of the technology. But before we can train them, we need a baseline. Now, here at PHM, prior to this, activity or whatever we want to call it, we weren't really training our sales leaders. There wasn't really a focus on them. It was jump into the training we're doing with the teams, with the mortgage consultants, the loan officers, learn what they're learning, and then you'll know, right? And so that obviously was not the right way to approach it. And so before we could give them the tools to make sure that they understood the tech stack and to become champions, we needed to level set. I needed a baseline. My team needed a baseline. And so we said, you know what? We are really big on journeys here at PHM. We're really big on tasks. We ask our mortgage consultants and loan officers to do a lot of tasks every day inside of the platform. Let's ask our sales leaders to do it too. Like, let's let them take a walk in their shoes while also letting us gather data to know where they stand in using different tools. 100%. So I think we can bring up perfect. Okay. So this was one of them. We did this for a quarter. We didn't need to do it past that to get the data that we needed. So we did it for 1 quarter. Every month had a journey. It's all task-based. And some of it was inside of Total Expert. Some of it was social media, like how much do they know about that? Mm-hmm. Some of it was, are they using our tools, where our recognition tools, are they doing that, right? So, but by large in part, most of it was inside of the tech stack. So we would ask them to do things like send an email to your team using Total Expert. Can you do that without, too much training? Do they know? Do they not know? Record a video and send a video through Total Expert. Go in and do an audit of your team's tasks. Like, can you pop in and out of their accounts seamlessly? And so we were doing these things, right? And after each task was completed, we would run a report, who completed the task, who didn't. And then depending on the activity that we asked them to do, like, for example, emailing, we would go and pull our email logs to see who actually did an email, right? Now, we set this up for them, right? We put their teams in there for them so they didn't have to worry about doing that. We even did real estate. We did some real estate agent reach out through their accounts to see if they could do that. And so we did guide them. We didn't just sort of say, oh, try to figure it out on your own. Each task had enough information in it to help guide them with what they needed to do. And then obviously they could reach out to us. But what ended up happening is after each month, we would pull all of our data and then we would create buckets. They're really good here, but they're not really good here. So if they're not really good here, Are their teams really good here? Do they understand the impact that this has on their business every day? And so we started to create structure around where we needed to focus in on the sales leaders and what they needed to know, which then led us to creating mini sessions with them within that quarter to help bring that knowledge up a little bit more so that they felt more equipped to be a champion and an advocate of our technology stack. And it was great because now, more so than ever, now we're a year from that happening. Our sales leaders are more inside of our tech stack than they ever were before. And this was the jump off point. Well, the meetings were the jump off point, but this was the start of that based off of the feedback from those meetings.
This gave you enough insight into what was actually, what they actually do and what they didn't know. But what was interesting is a few things you said that just jumped out to me was you did have to do a little bit of work on your end, right? If you're going to ask them to train them or to send out an agent email or whatever it is, you have to have the content in there. So that's the first step, which is a little bit of recon on your side, but not a ton. Likelihood is that you have most of that stuff in there for them already. So that was that. And also I'm curious, what was the accountability like with this? Was it strictly, were they doing any, marking that task complete and that was their reporting, or were you truly going in and saying, hey, how many of them actually sent out this template, or were we manually kind of tracking some of that from the data perspective?
It's probably a little bit of both, right? So they did have to complete the tasks. That was a huge part of this is, do they know how to complete their tasks?
Yeah.
When we got to March, we did some outcome-based tasks because a lot of our MCs, our mortgage consultants, have outcome-based tasks. So we wanted to gauge their knowledge there, but most of them were pretty straightforward tasks. So we are asking them to complete them. I was never worried about somebody completing it and not actually doing it because everything that we put in there, we could measure.
Yeah.
And some of it was a little manual, right? Like we'd have to go into accounts and we'd have to see things. And, but it also gave us the opportunity to give them kudos, right? When they send an email inside of the platform and they're sending it to their team, we could turn around and say, hey, you sent this email, your entire team opened it, they watched this video, like you did a great job here, you're leading by example. So there was a little bit of a manual lift. There was a little bit of, obviously we can see if they're completing the tasks, but we would report out on this to our executive team every month. So, and this was a topic of conversation in every sales leader meeting. So this became a normal thing, almost culture, right? They expected it and they knew that we were going to report out on it and we would color code them, right? So the people who were really excelling were in green, the people who were sort of middle of the road were yellow, and the people who just were not doing anything were in the red. Nobody wanted to be in the red. So,
I mean, if I'm a manager, I don't want to be in the red.
No,
I don't want to be in the red.
Yeah. So there was accountability on all levels because I can't hold them accountable. So there needed to be levels of that accountability, and it was there. We built it in ahead of time.
So now from this point forward, right, you're probably a year or so in having leveraged this. What have you seen from this point on after implementing this? What does the buy-in look like from sales leaders? Is it just astounding how many leaders are actually investing in the tool now comparatively to what it was like before?
For sure. 100%. I think we pulled data last year for the first 6 months, and we looked at the adoption and the inside the platform for our sales leaders. And I forget what the number was, but we just crushed it. Right. And so, and it continues to move on from there. But I think what it did for us, more importantly, was we learned where we were falling behind as a team. We did not do a good enough job of equipping our sales leaders with the knowledge to become a champion or to become an advocate of any piece of our tech stack.
Yeah.
So what we learned from it moving forward is when we roll something out that's new to our field, or we're re-engaging in something that we've had before, we need to start with them before we can go to the field, because I need them to understand it, to ask their questions, to give their opinions and their feedback, and then for them to buy into it so that when we do roll it out to the field, there's a better reception from it. And that's from the top down, right? So everybody needs to have some idea of what's going on. And then obviously the sales leaders need to be able to roll their sleeves up and get into it.
Yeah. I mean, if the sales leaders aren't advocating for the tool, their people aren't going to be using the tool. So have to start there, and also have to make sure there's accountability there, and that it's a twofold. The sales manager has to be involved, but there's also has to be accountability from the top for them to actually want to do it. Similar to how we get the loan officer, it's a 3-tiered approach. And I love that you are doing both. And you're also making sure that the executive team, and we're rolling that up to the executive team based on the feedback from these journeys. And we're using that to say, hey, this is where they fall. And we're actually bringing that straight to the executives, which I think 100% encourages folks to start jumping in and starting doing something with the tech stack that they have at hand. So that's amazing. Jelaire, this is so good. And you guys have done an amazing job. This is just part 1. We are talking about, our sales leader journey and how you guys have adapted that. We're also going to take that and we're going to move into part 2 and build upon that to the second half of, what you guys did in this evolution of adoption with Total Expert. And so stay tuned, everyone, for the next episode. And we will be, talking a little bit about what that looks like moving forward.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Jelaire.
Thanks.